Texture is important to our understanding of the world around us. Our understanding is influenced by our sense of touch and also our perceptions of our sense of touch. So those two, the actual touch and our perceptions of what we touched before. Did you ever have the experience of sticking your hand in a bag but not knowing what was in it? Your ability to interpret what might be in that bag relies on past associations of actual texture. The more actual textures you've had in your memory bank, the more you might be able to guess correctly. This relationship between the physical experience and the memory of it is important to understand how texture works in communication and design. There are two types of texture. Tactile texture, which is actual texture. You can feel the surface and it generates a sensory response. Tactile texture is produced by the maker of the object, so it's either nature or it's man makes the actual texture. Tactile texture can also be seen as well as felt, and this perception reinforced by the actual texture that you feel builds up our interpretation of textures in our memory. The more you repeat the sensory experience, the more it is reinforced. The second type of texture is visual texture. This visual texture uses perception and implied meaning to create an understanding of a surface. Implied meaning there is an implied meaning in culture. There's an agreed upon meaning of what you're feeling or what you're seeing and what you're remembering it felt like. Visual texture can be varied since it is based on personal perception and interpretation and your memory bank. If you've never had that memory or experience of a texture, you might have a hard time understanding a visual texture. What is essential to producing a visual texture? Light and shadow. If you create visual texture, you must understand how to manipulate light and shadow to create a varied surface. The lights and darks make valleys and hills, and those give an impression of visual texture. Visual texture always is a two-dimensional surface. It's always created on a two-dimensional surface. Tactile texture is three-dimensional, even if it's in low relief. Sometimes a visual texture might be used to create a pattern, and sometimes patterns look like visual texture. Patterns are made up of motifs repeated at regular intervals to create an orderly overall design. And a motif is a set of recurring shapes, forms, figures, whatever, in a design such as a fabric or a wallpaper. So let me repeat that again. Motifs are a set of recurring shapes, forms, or figures, and they repeat in an orderly fashion in a design. So whatever you choose to use in your designs, tactile texture, visual texture, or a pattern, know you're delving into our memory banks and most likely will elicit an emotional response to what you're creating. Thank you.